So we have a lady named Rachel that I just met, and she's got a, looks like a Fjord pony. He's 1.5 years old. I say pony, he's small, so that's why I say that. Looks like she's got some experience backing too. This is pretty impressive. But he's been being really pushy with her and hard to handle. He's very confident with things, like harnesses and driving, but he's been pushy on the ground. So we're going to see if there's something we can do to help him. I just want to see what your go-to way is. You know, so right now I'm seeing, you know, obviously you're controlling him with the halter, that sort of thing.
I mean, I literally don't do much with him
because it's just scary and difficult and.
Yeah, it's so unpleasant.
Yeah. I'm just curious if you have, like, do you have some cues or control with us with the?
I don't think more. Sometimes I think it makes him worse.
Oh, okay.
I mean.
Okay. All right.
Well, I don't know.
Anything else I should know before we get started? No? Is it okay with you if I take him and work with this a little bit?
Please.
Okay, so I'm going to take a hold of the lead rope here because I think, go ahead and you can step back. So at this point, I feel like I need to work with the horse. It's a little bit too much to handle for Rachel learning and training the horse at the same time. So I'm just going to step in, hopefully get a little bit of understanding going on the horse's part. And so the two aren't learning at the same time. Hopefully we'll get her Fjord there to understand a little bit, and then she can give it a try in a minute. You're only really controlling him with the halter. So at no time did he choose to listen and mind. Now, when he crowds me, I'm putting pressure on with the stick. I call that a block. So I didn't ask him to yield or step away. He started it. He was going to run into me, and I just protected my space. Okay? And so what's interesting is actually by giving him a little bit more room, it's going to help him get a little bit more settled. So it's way safer for me to have him out there. Now, him calling out is him being a little bit unconfident in the new area. You know, he's looking for other horses. So he's very anxious right now. So if I do ask him for a yield, I'm going to try to yield his hindquarters. So this is a really important thing to understand. Yielding their hindquarters helps them relax and decompress, but yielding their front end and their shoulder is what helps them learn to have a little more respect for our space, okay, and mind. So I'm not trying to whack him in the face, but if he just barges in, you know, no different than people, right? We don't just run into each other's space. Those are fighting words, you know, to kind of do that to somebody. And so all I'm doing is protecting my space. And again, this particular subject is I'm partial to, because there's two levels, kind of main easy things for humans to think about with horses. One side of the scale is more passive, the passive approach, where, well, let's just give him cookies when he does the right thing, and let's just ignore when he does the wrong thing, and eventually he'll get better. That's like one side, you know, extreme side. The other side is like, well, we need to take a bat to him and show him who's boss and make him listen, you know. And they're both right, they're both wrong. There's a middle of the road. So I understand that he's a little afraid right now, but just because he's afraid doesn't give him the opportunity to run through me, okay? And so you can see even now when he turns, he's not crowding my space as much, because when I wave the stick, he chose to step off of it. Versus if I pull on the halter and do this, I'm making him step off of it. So we're going to go to the hindquarters now and help him get settled. The general concept that we're going to be working on here is what I call owning space, okay? So it's not about him, it's about me being able to claim this spot and telling him he has to stay out of it. That makes me the boss. So I'm already the boss. In horse language, if there's a hay pile here and we're both horses and I can eat it and I chase you away from it, I'm the boss. If it's the other way around, you chase me off the hay, you're the boss. It's just really simple, you know, pretty simple logic. And he is a little bit afraid right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to own space by his hindquarters. So instead of me pulling on the halter to yield his hindquarters, I'm going to drive him with the stick and hopefully be out of the kick zone. And I'm going to drive the hindquarters here. So now there's pressure on the rope, but he put it there. I didn't put it there. He stepped off of it, then I'll relax. So I didn't pull on him. He took off and he ran into the rope and I just held it. I'm a post. So there's a huge difference of which one came first, right? If we pull on him versus if he ran, like just like when you tie him, right? He doesn't fight with the post if he's tied, because the post is 100% fair. If he pushes into it, it's matched. If he gives into it, it's immediately released. So that's what I'm going to try to do. It's a little bit easier said than done. So we're going to try that yield again. So I'm going to step around to the side. Oh, see what he's wanting. So again, I'm going to drive the hindquarters. I'm going to hold. My hand is close to my hip. I'm going to keep driving here. He's got to make a choice. There. Now, what a lot of people, it's human nature to micromanage them and try to make the move happen right away. So it took like a lap and a half for him to finally yield his hindquarters. That's okay.
And by yielding the hindquarters, you mean he comes into
He disengaged. Yeah, he took his hindquarters and he crossed them over like this. He stepped over and then faced me. Yep. But which part of his body did he move to the pressure? It was his hindquarters. Okay. But there's levels of this, right? So what a lot of people would tend to do with a horse like him is pull his nose here like this, and we would think it's the same thing. Now, it's super important that he learns to give to steady pressure. That is one of the most scary things to a horse. But he's used to that. He's okay with that. The next level for him to have more responsibility of how he leads and handles is for him to choose to yield. And if I pull his nose over here, he's not choosing to yield. I'm making him yield. Now we got whatever you do on one side, you got to do on the other side. So now same game. Ah, do you see how there's no pressure on the rope? There. Very good. Super. So can you see how he's calling out less? The whole energy around the situation is kind of de-escalating. It's because it's the yield helps, but mostly it's the fact that I went to the hindquarters. It's like with horses, there's mental, emotional, and physical. So it's like a human. If you're standing there like the way you're saying, you're relaxed right now. You're not like ready to go. So, but if you do that, right, your energy came up when you did that, didn't it? Right? Because you were physically in a different position. So they kind of go hand in hand. So when a horse crosses their hind legs over, mentally they're thinking about stopping, basically. They're not thinking about running faster. So when he was whinnying and carrying on, he was thinking about powering up and going faster. The next thing that I want to do, that was to help him settle so he could learn what I want to teach him today. What I want to teach him today is to respect humans' personal space. Right? So we all have a personal space bubble. I would recommend to anybody, when you have a really green horse like him, the personal space bubble is to the end of the stick. So your arm plus 4 feet, which is the stick, this is our bubble. He is not allowed to come in here until he proves himself safe. Safe to be in here, okay? Now, you'll see me be closer to him, but it's because I went into his space. I can do that. Or I can invite him to come into mine. Two completely different ways to get closer to him versus I stood here and I just allowed him to barge in uninvited. Does that make sense? So now we're going to practice now this idea of owning space. And right now it's just going to, that was kind of nice, huh? But I'm still going to wave the stick and ask him to step off of it just to reinforce it a little bit. Now I try to keep your stick above your rope, so that you're not getting tangled up like I just did. Just showing you what not to do. Getting myself all sandy here too. I hope you guys can see the difference from where the horse started at and where the horse is now. I think we made some big progress, but keep in mind that this horse's behavior was like -3, I would say, out of -10 all the way to +10. So because it was -3, we maybe brought the horse to like a 0, -1 or a 0. But we're still a long ways away from a 10. But this is just the first session. It gives us a starting point, and we can build from here. So my plan with Rachel moving forward, she's going to come back next week. We're going to do a couple more lessons. And depending on how comfortable she feels doing these techniques, I may take the horse and do a few more days of training and then bring her back into the picture. But this is ultimately more about Rachel learning how to do these ground skills. Because this horse's personality is also to be very playful. He's got a very high play drive and pretty spunky. And so she needs to learn these techniques on how to deal with this horse on the ground. Really, in my opinion, more than the horse just needs me to train it. So Rachel's willing to take that on, and hopefully we'll be able to keep you guys posted on the progress.